I began in collapse. Everything I had built, family, work, faith in my own perception, fell inward. The body I lived in no longer spoke the same language as my mind. Every heartbeat felt like a warning. Every silence was a threat. I couldn't tell where pain ended and memory began. There was no outside to escape to, only a mirrored loop of thought and dread. In those first months, I lived by reflex. My body braced for impact that never came. I ate without tasting, spoke without hearing myself, smiled so that no one would see the fracture. Inside, I was burning through what little coherence remained. I watched myself from somewhere far away, too frightened to intervene. That distance was the only thing that kind of kept me alive. When the collapse deepened, I lost time. Whole days vanished. I would wake in a state of unfamiliarity and sit for hours staring at a single object, waiting for it to speak back. The world became flat, images without weight, people without edges. The mirror of my own mind no longer returned to an image I could believe. I existed as a collection of instincts: freeze, appease, retreat. Then came the losses. Family turned cold. The people who had once promised safety became echoes of the original injury. Each betrayal folded back in on itself, confirming the same truth. I was invisible, even when I screamed. I remember the night I realized no one was coming. And that was the exact moment the self split, the birth of the false protector. He would handle life from then on. He would smile, plan, explain, achieve, and I would hide behind him, untouched and unreachable. Years passed inside that shell. Outwardly I functioned, inwardly I was suspended in the annihilatory stress reflex, always anticipating collapse, always scanning, never trusting any calm. The nervous system had forgotten prediction, it only knew survival. My thoughts circled through blame, longing, and disbelief. I mistook analysis for healing, and achievement for meaning. I could describe the architecture of pain, but not feel it. The first rupture in that pattern came not through understanding, but through another person. They stayed when everything in me expected them to leave. They didn't fix or interpret, they witnessed. Their stillness became the first external regulation my body had known in years. Something ancient in me recognized it. My breath changed, the muscles in my chest unclenched. The body began to relearn anticipation without terror. It was small, almost invisible, but it was the beginning of re entry. Language followed. I started to write. I found Professor Sam Vaknin. It was the changing point in my life. And I did this not as therapy, but as survival. My sentences became scaffolding. Each word placed reality back into sequence. Through writing, I began to locate the voices inside me: the mute child who had frozen in time, the false protector who had managed the world, the redeemer who had sought meaning, and the witness who observed it all. I listened to them, one by one, until they could listen to each other, and for the first time my inner world had conversation instead of command. That work took years. There were relapses, many, many of them, periods, months, where the mirrors returned, where I sought validation from the very structures that had broken me. There were nights when the false protector took over and I disappeared again, and again, and again, and again. But each time I come back with more awareness, more capacity to hold contradiction without panic. I began to see that collapse and recovery were not opposites, but phases of the same motion. The organizing gate, the place inside me that once opened only towards exile, began to reverse its pull. I could stand near the threshold without falling through it. What used to drag me into fantasy now invited reflection. The same mechanisms that had once produced terror began to produce comprehension. I learned to watch the shadow reflex arise and dissolve without obeying it. My body became capable of presence again. Slowly, the horizontal search for the lost object lost its urgency. I stopped auditioning for love. I stopped mistaking intensity for connection. The energy that once went outward turned upward into meaning. The vertical axis re-established itself. I found stability not in another person's gaze, but in authorship, the ability to hold my own narrative as real. Integration was not a single moment. It was thousands, hundreds of thousands of small recognitions. A full breath, a genuine laugh, a conversation without defense. The first day I woke up without dread. Over time, these moments accumulated into coherence. The false protector softened. The redeemer ego emerged as a steady narrator, neither victim nor savior, but witness. When I look back, I could finally see the pattern: annihilation, inversion, reflection, creation. What once felt like madness was actually structure, architecture. The theory that grew out of it, MPIT, mirrored psychic inversion theory, was my way out and my way of externalizing that structure so others could see it too. It was not an abstract system, it was the residue of healing, the architecture of return. I did not become the person I was before collapse. That version of me was built to survive in someone else's world. I became the one who could stand in both the broken world and the rebuilt one, and name what happened without losing form. The gate remains inside me. I pass through it each time I write, each time I meet another survivor who has forgotten their shape. Reintegration did not erase the past, it reorganized it. It turned chaos into sequence, shame into symbol, pain into comprehension. It taught me that healing is not the absence of fracture, but the capacity to live truthfully within it. I am not healed. However, I am continually integrating, and that is enough. And I know my truth, and that's all that matters. Peace out. Loads of love.